So then on that point, you had the scaffolding of the Bretton Woods system, and it still had a core. It had a core of gold in it, which gave it some legitimacy as a real monetary system. And then in 1971/1973, what happened was they took out the core, but they left the scaffolding. So we have the same scaffolding of a monetary system because why do we have that scaffolding? Because it's very hard to reprice everything overnight and go back to gold and silver itself. So you have all this other very liquid currency. So you keep pricing things in that, and meanwhile the dollar exchange rate with gold keeps going higher and higher and higher over time. So it's the scaffolding, it's the empty scaffolding of the Bretton Woods system that the entire world is still standing on. So what happens from here is that since the dollar is still the world's reserve currency.
Welcome to Economy Express, your go-to destination for all things economics and finance. Whether you're an experienced investor, an inquisitive student, or just someone who wants to stay ahead in today's ever-changing economic landscape, you've come to the right place. Now, let's get into the details of our news.
Exploring the future of the global monetary system, Rafi Farber has highlighted the fragility of fiat currencies and the escalating cycle of debt. The Bretton Woods system, established after World War II, positioned the US dollar as the global reserve currency, initially backed by gold. However, in 1971, the US could no longer exchange dollars for gold at a fixed rate, leading to the collapse of this system. Despite the collapse, the US dollar continued to function as the world's reserve currency, maintaining the scaffolding of the old system. Fiat currencies, Farber explains, are inherently fragile, relying on ever-increasing debt loads to sustain themselves. When interest rates rise without corresponding money printing, defaults occur, triggering financial crises and necessitating extreme monetary interventions. Farber predicts a future event that will require unprecedented dollar printing to prevent the collapse of both domestic and international banks. This massive increase in the money supply could cause the dollar-to-gold exchange rate to skyrocket, eroding the dollar's purchasing power. The collapse of the dollar could...
Meaning in 1946, right? America had just conquered the entire world, and Europe was in tatters and shambles. And the United States said, look, we'll loan you money and you rebuild, and we'll loan you dollars. And in that way, the dollar became the reserve currency of the entire planet. And that gave the United States the ability to print more dollars and buy stuff for itself because everybody accepted dollars, at least everybody's central banks accepted dollars. And that's how every other currency became a derivative of the dollar. And through that, by being the second layer of the monetary pyramid, America was able to amass humongous amounts of resources for itself. And that's how they became the most powerful empire that's ever existed in the world.
And that was right after, I don't want to interrupt, but that's right after World War II when the United States wound up with the lion's share of precious metals on the planet, right?
Right.
Not only were they late to World War II and other countries were already bankrupt, supposedly they were supposed to confiscate it from the citizens, but a lot of them didn't give it up. But they had amassed what money is. They piled it up. And then, like you said, the currency was born. The world reserve currency was pretty much, I would say, given to the United States.
Yeah, that it was the aftermath of World War II that did it. Just mechanically, you can see it happening, or how it happened. And so then you had every country that owned some amount of dollars. And what was the way that the United States was able to cement it? They said, look, you take our dollars, and you can buy treasuries with them, and then you'll earn more dollars on that. That's a way to outsource their debt, so they can go into a whole bunch of debt and get even more stuff. And then on top of that, they guarantee, look, if you're worried about the currency, look, we'll give you an ounce of gold for every $35 you have. That's the deal. And then everyone's like, yeah, okay, fine. And then that worked until 1971, when too many people started asking for their dollars, for their gold back on the $35 an ounce,
As soon as they did that, they repriced it, and the people they gave the currency to got devalued like 30%. Like that, it's such a ripoff.
So then, on that point, you had the and then supply chains break down and all that other stuff. So when there are no longer enough dollars to service all the debt that exists, right? Because the way that you keep a fiat system going is you keep the debt piling higher and higher and higher because you have to, right? Because debt yields interest, which requires more dollars to pay the debt, which yields more interest, which requires more dollars. It just keeps going and going. But if you raise interest rates without printing more dollars, then eventually you're going to have people that can't pay back the debt. They default, causing the next line of default, everything starts falling over. And that's the business cycle. So the central bank has to print more. But every time this happens, it becomes more and more extreme. It was very extreme in 2008. It was even more extreme in 2020. It's going to be even more extreme the next time it happens. So what you're going to see, just a very broad outline, is something is going to happen that is going to require the Fed to print a whole bunch of dollars, because otherwise banks, international, domestic, they're all going to start collapsing because they're all backed by the dollar. And so you're going to have this huge demand for dollars. Prices are going to go down in dollars for a very short period of time. And then this huge demand for dollars is going to lead to the biggest printing event in history, bigger than 2020, which was bigger than 2008, which was bigger than 2000, which was bigger than 1987. It always gets bigger. And then eventually I think after this final round, the dollar to gold exchange rate is just going to go vertical. And then you're going to have people taking whatever dollars they have and getting whatever gold they can get. And there's not going to be any more. And then at that point, when the dollar gold ratio breaks down and nobody is willing to exchange any gold for dollars, then the dollar's dead, right? And then all the banks collapse. They still have all the scaffolding of solvency, right? Because they have enough dollars, but the dollar can't buy anything, so they can pass around monopoly money, and it's not going to do anything. That's the end game.
Dollar can't buy anything. Yeah, that's going to be. That's a long. The thing to take away is this could take, and it's already taken longer than I thought, but this could take a while where the dollar doesn't buy anything. You won't need a wheelbarrow to buy bread if it's a CBDC. It's going to be a painful, slow motion train wreck that we're just going to have to live through. Now, what is it? A 0.5% of people on the planet own precious metals. I think that's right.
I think that's right. That's the number I hear. I don't know what the reality is.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Everyone has some amount of silver. Everyone has some amount of silver in their house, silverware or jewelry or whatever. There's some amount. But stackers, yeah, I think 0.5% is around what the number is.
How's that going to work when
trigger the breakdown of all fiat currencies, leading to a global financial system collapse? In such a scenario, governments would struggle to enforce regulations and collect taxes with worthless currency. Farber envisions local economies, formed by individuals with real assets like gold and silver, as potential sources of order and trade. He emphasizes the importance of being prepared with resources like gold, silver, and ammunition to navigate the chaotic transition period. Historical parallels, such as the establishment of Israel post-Holocaust, illustrate the potential for resilience and rebuilding in the face of collapse. Local economies could interact with one another, preserving the remnants of society and potentially leading to a bottom-up restoration of law and order. Farber highlights the need for good people with real money to reestablish local economies and create a more just and sustainable system. While acknowledging the challenges and potential for some not to survive the transition, he emphasizes the importance of resilience and determination. Farber suggests that
which really did lead to a dark age, and the government just lost all control. Even in Weimar, right, you still had dollars functioning. You could buy stuff with dollars, and then the government could pay its thugs with dollars. So any isolated hyperinflationary incident will still leave the government that is in charge of that area with a certain amount of power. But when we're talking about the end game, we're talking about the end of the dollar, and then we're talking about the end of all currencies, right? And in that situation, the government loses all control. They can say, oh, taxes are going to be 95%, and if you break this law or whatever regulation, we're going to send you to jail. Yeah, but in order to do that, you need to pay people to send you to jail. You need to pay people to enforce all these regulations. You need to pay people. You need money for that. And they don't have any, or they don't have enough. So we're talking about really the breakdown of authority. And in that you call it the Thunderdome, you could call it Mad Max, whatever you want to call it. That's the idea of stacking. If enough good people have enough money to band together and to create local economies, then you can have those local economies interacting with other local economies. Because if you're a policeman or an FBI agent or whatever that's going to try to arrest people for not paying the 95% tax on their gold, but you can't, but your government can pay you in dollars and you can't eat with those because they don't buy anything, you're going to try to join one of your local economies instead because you'd rather eat than die. So we're talking about the breakdown of law and order, which could be a very terrifying thing, but could also be a very liberating thing, because if there are enough good people that believe in real law and order, that have enough money to reestablish local economies, then you can have going from bad law and order, which is like now, arrest Trump for hush money or whatever crap this is, and or protect criminals, protect rapists from the people that want to sue them, which is the law and order that we have devolved into in many different countries. You can go from that bad law and order to a good law and order from the bottom up again, for people who understand what real law and order is, which is why it's so crucial to have good people with real money, and obviously with ammunition and with ways to enforce it. But the division of labor is based on money. So the more people that have real money, the more spread out division of labor you can have, and that can preserve the kernels of society that can then take over everything else that has fallen apart. Because if you imagine that you're a Berkeley student who just got a degree in underwater gender studies basket weaving that we talked about, and now you have no job because you can't be employed and you're going to starve to death, you're also going to look for a local economy to see what skills that you can put in or starve. And so hopefully people like us have enough resources to get this going again quickly before we really do devolve into a Thunderdome.
I'm going to have to read a little bit. I read you just a little bit earlier, but this is the New World Order.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through this book, and it's terrifying what has been written from the people that run this country. And just a little bit. The New World Order, that is been talked about by presidents, and it has everything to do with what's happening. And it talks about Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. This is what he had to say. The New World Order will include changes in the family. Homosexual marriages will be legalized. Parents will not be allowed to raise their children. The state will. All women will be employed by the state and not allowed to be homemakers. Divorce will become exceedingly easy, and monogamous marriage will slowly be phased out. The government will become the owner of all the factors of production. The private ownership of property will be outlawed. Religion will be outlawed, and believers will be either eliminated or imprisoned. There will be a new religion, the worship of man and his mind. All will believe in the new religion.
Who wrote this?
That was Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. I can't pronounce it.
Oh, Zbigniew Brzezinski?
Brzezinski, yeah, that's it.
Right,
he was one of them. He is a bad guy, but it's over and over and over. It talks about the third wave. A new civilization is emerging in our lives. The new civilization brings with it new family styles, changes ways of working, loving, and living, a new economy, new political conflicts. Beyond all this, an altered consciousness as well. The dawn of the new civilization is the single most explosive fact of our lifetimes. That was Time magazine talking about Professor Skinner's book, which is just another communist. The communists, the people that are for the New World Order, know good and well that the dollar's a Ponzi scheme. It's the biggest one that's ever been on the planet. And I'm struggling making the transition, that transition from, we blow up the dollar, the people that have precious metals live happily ever after. That's something that I feel like a long, awful path with wars, rumors of wars, persecution, and everything in between. I'm pretty optimistic on the end. I'm just not very optimistic on getting there. It's going to be tough to make it through. Do you have a timeline? I mean, do you think 10 years is fair within the next 10 years?
I think it's fair. I think 10 years, yeah. Look, we can read the books like The New World Order and fear porn. I'm not criticizing you here. I'm just saying that I'm really no. If it gives you an idea of what we're up against, read it. If it's just going to cause you to freak out, then don't read it. I mean, you can decide what you can handle and what you can't. Personally, I can't handle reading all the details of what they have planned for me. I won't dispute that they're trying. Okay. And I'll say, yeah, Zbigniew Brzezinski wants this and the evil people want that. But then again, like, God created the world and he made absolute power impossible, and he's going to help. I can only go to that because if I go too deep into all the evil they have planned, I will lose it. And I can't afford to lose it. I have a wife and kids.
Those holding real assets like gold and silver will be better positioned to endure the economic collapse. He warns against the dangers of focusing too much on the plans of those in power, advocating instead for practical preparation and faith and resilience. The potential endgame involves a breakdown of authority and the creation of new, self-sustaining communities based on real assets and mutual support.